Welcome. I'm your host, Dave Wiedis, and it's great to be with you. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic and a practice of critical importance to pastors and people in ministry, but sadly, it's one that's neglected. And it's the topic of taking a pastoral sabbatical. In my experience in counseling pastors at ServingLeaders Ministries, I meet with many pastors who experience burnout, which is physical and emotional exhaustion, as well as flame out, moral failure. One of the major contributing factors to experiencing burnout and flame out is the idea of failure to rest, failure to take a break, to be refreshed, and to really engage in wise and intentional self-care. It's so critical. It's so critical that pastors really minister out of an abundance of life in their heart, life from Christ, and yet it's easy to be depleted. It's easy to not be able to give life because of one's own physical exhaustion. So that's why we're going to be talking about the pastoral sabbatical. Benefits, challenges, why you need to take it if you're a pastor. And I am delighted to welcome my guest, Phil Carnuccio. Phil, welcome.
It's great to be here, Dave.
Great to be with you. Phil is the senior pastor at Providence Church in Westchester, Pennsylvania. He's a dear friend, and we work together on staff there at Providence, and he's my pastor as well. So welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
I want to ask you right from the start, talk to us about sabbatical. What is a sabbatical, and why do pastors need it?
Okay. So just to bring clarity, a sabbatical is not taking a break, taking time to go write a book or to go do something else. Really, the word in itself means to rest. And I think we kind of recapture the word. If a pastor wants to take a break to write a book, call it, I'm going to take a leave of absence to write a book or to take classes at school. But the term sabbatical means to rest. And I did not know that when I was preparing for a sabbatical. Most guys that I was talking to did not understand that sabbatical meant to rest, to actually stop what you're doing, and to take the time to truly rest. So
it comes out of the idea of Sabbath, right?
Exactly.
The idea of taking a Sabbath, and it's one of the big 10. God commanded the Sabbath.
Right.
We treat that as an optional thing, but even in your ministry, I know that you take a Sabbath as well as taking a sabbatical.
Exactly. And so I really recognize that in ministry, I love people. I'm energized by what I get to do. I enjoy what I get to do, but I think I didn't realize, Dave, how depleting, because it's slow. It's a slow depletion. I didn't realize that how depleting it was through time. And I didn't have a whole lot of people in my life that were saying, hey, this is really important. But after the 20-year mark, which in my opinion is too long, if you've been in ministry for 20 years and you haven't taken a sabbatical, I think that's too long. But I began to have some men around me and some women that said, we think it would be important, this would be a good time for you to take a sabbatical. The problem is we had to figure out what that was, what that looked like.
So before we get into your experience with sabbatical, talk a little bit about this depletion. Talk about the idea, the pressures that a pastor faces. What is it that burns you out? What is it that causes this emotional or physical depletion?
Right. Well, sometimes, again, it's hard to detect that it's actually happening to you. I think some of the causes are the pressure of ministry. You know, you have to, for a lot of guys, they have to preach every week the problems of people, and they tend to be recurring. So it's not like we're dealing with new issues. So that can become, we can become disillusioned with the fact that, man, I'm dealing with the same issues over and over again. I think expectations that people have of you can certainly create a depletion. But some of the signs, for me, some of the signs that I was tired and needed to take a sabbatical. I love people. I started to feel like I wanted to separate myself from people, which was not typical of me.
So it's uncharacteristic behavior.
Uncharacteristic behavior. Okay. Began to just be a part of my heart.
Yeah.
Kind of in here, in my gut. So I started to have like anxiety that wouldn't go away. We all get anxious, you know, but there was just anxiety that wouldn't go away. There was fear. I felt, I remember having conversations with people and feeling like I couldn't be present with them, couldn't listen to them, loss of some of my passion. And I remember thinking privately, I didn't communicate this to a lot of people. This is before I took sabbatical. I remember thinking quietly in my prayer to the Lord, thinking, Lord, I cannot continue to love well for a long time in the current state of how I'm beginning to feel.
Wow.
I didn't want to. Wow. I didn't want to. And so there was that scared me.
Yeah.
That scared me to be honest about that. And I don't remember if I was honest with you about that. We were just getting to know each other.
Yeah.
So that was a hard place. That was a hard place.
Let's back up for a moment, because one of the things implicitly you were talking about, you know, pressure, having to prepare for sermons, having to deal with people, having to deal with reoccurring problems that don't go away, right?
Right?
Just talk a little bit about the hours involved in your work.
Right.
How many hours do you work in a week?
Yeah.
Have you ever counted?
Well, sometimes let me go back a little bit.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think about what people require of a pastor. They want you to preach inspirational sermons and be creative.
And you do.
They expect you to. Thank you. That was Dave being my friend, just being kind to me there. They expect you to have vision. You know, where's the church going? They expect you to balance budgets. They expect you to build teams. They expect you to deal with conflict. I mean, I don't know who developed the job description of a pastor, right?
Right.
They expect you to deal with funerals. They expect you to do weddings. They want you to mourn with those who are mourning and rejoice with those who are rejoicing. You know, so there's all.
Let's not stop there. And create Sunday school curriculum, and also make sure the garbage is taken out, and also make sure the seats are clear.
Exactly.
And set up, and so if the music is right. It doesn't stop.
So if you actually look at the job description of a pastor, it's totally unrealistic. It's like the phantom. It's like a man cannot accomplish it. So when a guy comes under that and lives in that for a long time, it is depleting.
Yes.
It is. To say it's not, you know, or to not expect yourself to be depleted or beat yourself up because you are depleted, you're not dealing with the reality of what it is. So all those things together.
And combine all of those things with the high expectations. Not just of the congregation, but most pastors that I work with are perfectionistic.
Right.
They have a lot of integrity. They want to do what they do well. So then you've got your own expectations and then constantly not living up to them?
Yeah. Not living up to them, so you're critical of yourself.
Yeah.
And then the big word, you're working your tail off, you're exhausted. You're usually not making a lot of money.
Right.
You're not getting in this thing to make a lot of money. And then on top of that, you have critics. You have people telling you, these are the things that we wish were different, either about you or about the church or about how you handled situations.
Right.
And so
they're disappointed.
You just get to a point sometimes. I think if every pastor is honest, sometimes you just get to a point you go, what on earth am I doing?
Right.
At moments.
Right.
And it kind of brings you back to your core of, why am I doing this?
Right.
So all those things can be extremely depleting.
All right. So you face this period of your life when, as I understand it, people close to you start to say, Phil, we think it's time for you to take a sabbatical.
Right.
And your response was?
At first, my response was, why? I feel great.
And you weren't lying, right?
No, I was not lying. I was not lying. Because I'm energized. I'm energized by what I do. I mean, there's a lot of hard things, but I enjoy, for the most part, what I get to do. I'm energized by it. So at first, I didn't really think I needed it. So.
And then what happened?
Then I started to just, when enough people said that, I started to kind of sit back and be a little bit more analytical about my heart and where I was. And just when people were saying that to me is when I began to see some of these flags that I just talked about just a moment ago.
Right.
You know, I'm like, I'm repeating, but anxiety, fears, loss of passion. I didn't want to study. I really wasn't passionate about preaching. I was having difficulty being present with people. People would walk up to me and I was thinking, like out of the corners of my eyes, you could see them coming. I'm thinking, I don't want this person to come up to me.
Right.
I don't want to. I'd be driving to church to go to church service and my anxiety level would be high as I was going to church thinking, how on earth am I going to get through tonight?
Right.
I mean, feelings like that, I'm like, that's not me. I don't want to, I do not want to minister from this place.
Right. And as I said when I introduced the topic, we want pastors to thrive, not just survive, and we want them to be giving out of the abundance of their relationship with Christ. And so what you're saying is you started to experience not that.
Right.
You start to experience depletion and, how do I get through this?
And I couldn't get it back.
Yeah.
Like the typical normal routines that I knew what to do.
Right.
Go for a run, spend more time praying, be in the scripture. Now, honestly, those things were not in themselves restoring my heart to a place where I felt like I could have longevity to keep loving people well. And that was hard. That was probably the first time in my life I felt like that, and that was scary.
Yeah.
That was hard. And that's what I was saying. You know, I said to the Lord, I don't want to. I can't fake it.
Right.
I can't act like I'm loving people when inside I'm overcome by fear and anxiety.
Okay. So you decide to take a sabbatical.
Yes.
And take us into that.
Great. Okay. So.
Because purposes of sabbatical vary. Your purpose was to rest, right?
Well, I had a hard time finding people that understood what sabbatical was. And finally, I found a group, Cornerstone, who that's what they do. They help pastors and leaders in ministries orchestrate, to prepare the church and then prepare the pastor to actually have a sabbatical. And so we prepared as a church. Once I decided I was going to take a sabbatical, it took us 1 year to prepare for that.
Wow.
To begin to structure it, to prepare the team for that, to prepare the people at Providence, the church for that. So everyone was on the same page. It wasn't done quietly. It wasn't done on the side. It was communicated clearly.
It wasn't done precipitously or impetuously, yeah?
Right.
In other words, I've had it at Serving Leaders Ministries, I've had people say, I'm going to take a sabbatical and I'm starting in 2 weeks. And I go, hold on, what are you planning on doing? And it's very easy to squander the time that is set aside, whether it's a month, 3 months, 6 months. It's easy to squander a sabbatical time if it's not properly planned.
Right, exactly.
So
it took us 1 year of prep.
Okay.
And there's two avenues of the prep. One was preparing our staff, because I'm the lead pastor at our church. It's different if you're not the lead. I am the lead pastor at Providence. So what that required was, in all the areas that I was leading, I had to make sure those things were covered.
Right.
Preaching was covered by a team. We had to work with that. All the areas that I'm involved in, we had to work at preparing people for that.
And so your sabbatical was for how long?
It was for 3 months.
Okay.
We felt like the best time when things slowed down for Providence was in the summer. So we decided June, July, and August would be the best months for me to take the sabbatical.